Hey, it's JankyJolteon. I'm Bree, and this is Diana. Today we're going to be reacting to Troubles by Ren.
Bree has seen this a bunch of times, but this will be the first time that I've ever seen it. I'm pretty new to the whole Renegade fandom. I've seen High Ren and his 8-part chapter about his medical exploration, so this will be brand new, and I'm excited to blind react to it.
And this video came out right after he released his chapters, so it ties right into that.
Mm-hmm.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
I don't reach into the past very much for these shards of shattered glass and harsh paper cuts. Leave me stop when I reach in, memories are seeping. Hydrochloric acid, I go to war and get passive and freeze on. Music help the eyes to thaw. Put the chisel in the middle, swing the hammer of Thor. Pull it out of the impossible, Excalibur sword. Edging notepads full of reasons why my feelings are sore. The first day that I got sick, ejected from the cockpit of living. 19 young.
So I really like that line, ejected from the cockpit, because during the chapters he talked a lot about how he didn't feel like he was in control of his life, both from the aspect of the disassociation he was experiencing, but also he was kind of at the mercy of all these doctors, none of whom were providing him any kind of answers. So I really like that line because it's more than a double entendre. It's like a triple or a quadruple entendre, because there were so many parts of it, because it was such this sudden jarring health issue. There was the symptoms of disassociation, and then there was this complete loss of control in his life.
Right.
He had to return
basically a neurological condition that got treated as a psychiatric condition, and, not that it didn't have psychiatric effects, but by treating the wrong root cause, nothing was getting solved.
Yeah, so he was just getting worse from all these things, and he desperately was seeking control. But even the parts that he had, some kind of a control on, he didn't, too. He mentions how he had to fake a stomach bug to get antibiotics to help with it. And that was, again, a thing where he felt like he knew him, and because he couldn't prove that, because everybody thought he was...
not medically recommended, but it did get him some more clear answers that gave him a better direction to go. At that point, he could narrow down, this is clearly a bacterial issue, if antibiotics are helping. Now, that doesn't answer it for him, but it did lead him down the path that got that answer. And I also appreciate, Excalibur's sword, Thor, Hammer of Thor, hyperfixation of mine.
Yes.
Just all the mythological references make me happy.
Yeah, and I like, too, because both references he used were things about worthy, being worthy. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of feelings of worthlessness during this time. And also, I think it ties into that idea that his symptoms were never enough for them, he was never enough of an expert for them to trust his symptoms. And that's something happened with you, too. You'd be like, hey, here's all the study and stuff. And they'd just be like, oh, you've been seeing Dr. Google. And it was just written off. And it was this idea of, I think that ties into the idea of not necessarily feeling like the chosen one, but feeling like being the chosen one is the only person that they'll listen to.
And I get it from a doctor's perspective. You have a lot of people that don't really know how to research, and they come up with some really nonsensical things, just trying to get themselves to get looked at, which I can understand, just hoping for any type of answer. But at the end of the day, doctors hear this all the time. So when somebody who actually has their resources put together, hold on, I think I know my body, I found a pattern, and they're like, yeah, you're just like everyone else who thinks they found something. I'm the expert. And you get dismissed. Yeah. And there's still a good chunk of people that probably have a pretty good direction of the answer, and they just need a professional to fill in the gaps.
Yeah, and it's doubly insulting, because, I don't specifically know about physical health, because I don't work in that, I work in mental health, but, the way that you diagnose mental health is a lot of self-report. The way we come up with a diagnosis is obviously the symptoms that we see, but also the symptoms that you report. So it's weird that it doesn't translate I think part of it is ego and part of it is capitalism, because in an ideal world where they didn't charge you an arm and a leg to examine your arm and leg, there's no harm in, hey, I think this is, an example that's relevant for both of you, I think this is Lyme disease. do the test for Lyme disease. Even if you think, oh, they're just being hysterical. Oh, they just did Dr. Google. What does it hurt to do a test?
Like, oh, you never got a bullseye rash? No, not worth the test. Except for 10 years goes by, and now 25 to 33% of people report they never saw a rash, yet were diagnosed with Lyme. So what was previously dismissed as a reason to not be tested is now not a reason to dismiss it.
Yeah, and that's something we should learn about. It reminds me of there's that funny post where it's like, Happy Copernicus Day. You might remember him as the guy who was like, hey, what if the Earth revolved around the sun? And the church was like, hey, what if you were on fire? Like, you shouldn't dismiss something. I mean, if somebody's like, hey, I think my arm is poisonous and you should amputate, yeah, don't do that. But if somebody's like, hey, I think I have diabetes, and they don't, what's the problem in doing a blood glucose test?
Right.
I mean, I don't know exactly what the Lyme disease test is, but I imagine it's not super, especially if it's early in the stages, it's not super invasive to do. If someone's like, hey, I think it's this.
Yeah, if you catch it early, the baseline tests are pretty simple, but a lot of people don't have symptoms until years later, and that really complicates the diagnosis.
Yeah, and that's what's frustrating. Like, even if you think, oh, this person's being hysterical, oh, this person's being a hypochondriac, if it's not going to do them undue harm to humor that idea, why not do it?
I'm not asking you to cut out an organ, I'm asking you to take a little bit of blood and look at it.
Yeah, what if you're wrong? Why not just do that? And there's a lot of reasons, and none of them are good reasons, but that's where we are. So I like that jumped out of the cockpit, because it was a lot of different things. He was betrayed by his body, he was betrayed by the medical facility, he wasn't in control, and a lot of that wasn't his fault. A lot of the not in control was because of circumstances he couldn't manage. I also like the fit, it's very 8 Mile Eminem.
Yes.
Waking up, posters up, manhunt, Ren went missing. Hard to have faith when the gods don't listen. The first year, baby, was the hardest. Waking in the body that was buried like a carcass. Brain in the lion's den, body in the shark pit. Waking up in pain again, aching, broken hearted. Persistent little blogger, I was bouncing from a doctor to a doctor to a doctor, like a table tennis game that has no end. So be the fate of Ren. Every single question answered with a question on the end. The second year I came to terms with giving up my dreams. Mine was severed from the means to help me write these rhyme schemes. Brain was inflamed, the fatigue was crushing. Hard to remain sane with your brain combusting. And the third year was murder, living in a purgatory for the worry wouldn't live to be 30. Lifestyle hurt me, always in my bed too.
Okay, I really gotta say, I like the way he wordsmiths certain things. Like, he doesn't follow a typical rhyme scheme in a lot of spots, but he makes it work anyways, like breaking up a word halfway through and then continuing it to make it match what he was saying, and I've never seen anyone make that flow so
it's
nicely.
A lot of slant rhymes that are, that seem very natural with it. And I do like the progression of, like, the word, what he's saying with it and how it ties not just to his medical history at the time, but his life, too. Like, I'm pretty sure in, like, the second or third year, that's when he started losing people, too. And that can feel like being dead, part of, dying in and of yourself a little bit, too.
Right.
And a body like a carcass lifestyle, I like where he's mentioning the lifestyle was what was necessary for the ability that he had, but it was also, like, he really references the terrible dichotomy of that, because the things that were helping his body were killing his mind. Being able, his body had these limitations where he had to be bedbound all this time, and that messed up everything else. Like, his mental health and his physical health were at war. It was almost like a betrayal of those two parts, because in order for his mental health to be happy, he would have to sacrifice his physical health, and in order for his physical health to be happy, to be happier than it was, he had to sacrifice mental health.
Spoiler alert, treating the correct condition tends to give you better results in symptom reduction.
Yes.
When you're 23 and mentally you steadily decline. 24 I was poor, disability benefits. What's the benefit of disability? It's irrelevant. 25 and the scars that were etched, they crack. Elastic bands only stretch so far and then snap deep in psychosis. Hallucinations, troubled vision. This is from the underworld, we're conjuring my superstition. 25 living back at home with my mum, but not because I'm a bum, alone and physically done. So thin, so frail, so weak I'd become, and my skin so pale, never kissed by the sun. One time I carved a hole in my chest just to feel. I wished I was a metaphor, the struggle was real. When you're living in the hollow of course you buckle and kneel. There's relief in the teeth of the kiss of cold steel. Fact, 26, I'm highly medicated and the pain sophisticated while I'm lying broken naked on my back. I brought my microphone until my coffin started dropping raw thoughts with the grim reaper knocking on the track. But then, man, lo and behold, I heard an angel beckon on this treacherous road. Was a stem cell doctor with a generous glow. In the cell transplant, pulled me out of the cold. And my skin got younger and my body got stronger and my stomach felt hunger for a...
So I really like that line, my skin got younger. Both because that was reality, you know, like I said, we watched the chapters and you got to see clips of all the different times that he was there, and at his worst time, you know, he did look much sicker and much haggard, even though he
the Me versus Me documentary had a lot of that.
Yeah, and I like that he said my skin got younger, not he got younger, because the reality is everything he's gone through has caused a lot, like his, you know, even if he gets his physical health back, he'll never get all the years that he wasn't physically well. Mm-hmm. And he'll never be as physically well as he was. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like when we were watching the chapters that we talked about how he kind of got... his entire 20s were lost to the illness. So in 30s, you know, he had to try and had to try and recoup and regain that time. Mm-hmm. And that causes its own issues because people expect you to act a certain way in your 30s. But when you didn't get your 20s, you're going to act like your 20s in your 30s. Especially because he did, you know, get a little bit more financially stable too. And when you're not financially stable, you also don't have time to relish it. Because the 20s is supposed to be the time when you have the most money and you have the most energy and you have the most freedom. And that doesn't happen for most people.
Yeah. It was like, I can't relate here, you know. Lost 10 years of my life to this, just to have been right the whole time.
Yeah.
Doctors would have listened, then could have fixed that a lot faster. But same with Ren. If doctors would have listened to him instead of like, oh, it's, you know, some depression. It's this condition that doesn't quite fit, but take these meds and it'll make it better.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it too. I think something that's relevant for both of you is the having a mental health diagnosis too does unfortunately create not just stigma, because it's not necessarily stigma, but there's stigma with it definitely. But
in my case, I look like a hypochondriac with a mood disorder. Of course, they wouldn't listen to me. But the thing is, I'm surrounded by mental illness. I know how these things express, and I can tell this isn't normal, but also the treatments aren't doing anything. That's not normal either. Something else is going on, and everyone was just like, nope, that's not it. Keep taking the meds until it nearly killed me. And then I only got better by not listening to them.
Yeah. And it's so difficult and it's so frustrating because you do get that extra layer of discredibility. Like, they already don't, well, you're not a doctor, so I'm not going to, you know, you went to Dr. Google. I'm not going to trust you. But also,
I've had doctors tell me to stay off of Dr. Google. And I'm like, you know what? I would if doctors would give me any time of day. You know, let me give you guys some ammo to start throwing at me with tests, and maybe we could get on the same page. But if I sit here and let you guys do what you want, I'd still be on that medication, and I probably would be dead by now.
And also, like, it's sometimes you don't even get a solution. All you get is your test results look fine. Mm-hmm. Okay, well then that should tell you, like, that should be followed up with, so let's do something else. Mm-hmm. Because you're saying that you're not fine, and you especially for you have this empirical evidence that you aren't fine. Yeah, like, so if the test results look fine, then it should be, that doesn't mean that nothing's happening. It means that those tests didn't catch anything, and that's not how you're trying.
And then, like, they're trying to say, you know, it's all stress. Stress is why you are vomiting incessantly and can't stop. You're dehydrated, malnourished, but it's just stress. Like, okay, but if it's just stress, my dad was in the hospital for 6 weeks straight, basically dying. I was in and out of work, driving 3 hours to go see him in the hospital. I didn't puke once in this time. If stress was the cause, I would have been my worst right there, and I actually had no symptoms in that time frame. Fun fact, I was so stressed out I wasn't taking my medication. That should have been a cue that my symptoms stopped with that. But regardless, it wasn't stress, because high amounts of stress, and it stopped.
Yeah, and every time we were hanging out and having fun.
It was usually fun times that my body rebelled, and that was probably because I was a little more on taking my medication properly, but, you know, it's when I want to go to the beach. Suddenly, I can't stop puking for 3 days straight. This isn't going to happen.
Yeah, and it's the idea that causation isn't always correlation. Mm-hmm. And there, you know...
And, like, especially, I suggested to my doctors, like, hey, these can cause gastro symptoms. That's a bit of an understatement with what I'm going through, but could my meds be responsible? Nope, wouldn't express that way. Gotta be a different issue. Go do this test, and this test. They all come back negative. It's just stress. Don't know what to tell you. But they just were convinced it wasn't my meds until I proved them wrong by having a heart attack and cold turkey quitting and recovering.
Yeah, and it's really like, it's just, I forget what point we were specifically on with this because we're tangenting a little bit, but I get that it's very, I like, we were talking about my skin got younger, because the rest of him never got younger. The experiences that he went through, his skin looked younger and got healthier, and I like the way that he chose to say that. It wasn't my appearance got younger, it wasn't I got younger, it was my skin got younger.
Right. Yeah.
Thought it was closed, and my soul heard music for the first time. Beauty was a word I used for this gift of God. Oh Lord, I forgive you. Lord, I forgive you. Lord, I forgive you. Make me whole. This music I give you. Pain that I live through. Everything I've been through is yours to hold.
Okay, so, and he mentioned this in his chapters a little bit, but he's bouncing off a song that he did a cover of that he went viral for a while ago, about Trouble's So Hard and how he relates to it. But he's also very, he makes it known that he's agnostic. You know, he's a spiritual tourist. He's, like me, he's dabbled in just about everything, getting little bits and pieces that he likes from everything, but he's not religious.
Yeah.
And so with that, there's a lot of, you know, oh lordy, I put it in your hands, whatever, but it's a tie back to that song. You know, nobody knows my troubles but God.
Yes, and it kind of, like, he talked about when he was doing the timeline of his sickness, too. He talked about how he turned to religion when he was desperate for answers and nothing else had given him the answer. Mm-hmm. So I think it's kind of, you know, that part, that specific type of Lord in religion didn't really work, but the song did. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that's interesting, too. You know, he talks about how he can still benefit somewhat from the beliefs, even though he doesn't fully subscribe to them. Yeah. And that was initially, that was what religion was supposed to be. Something too I was going to mention earlier that I really like is, because, you know, I've seen this and I've seen a few songs during his chapters, obviously, and stuff. I like, too, that I believe this was one of the very first ones he did after the chapters, and I like that he went back to the rapping part of it. Mm-hmm. I'm not super well versed in music, can't carry a tune to save my life, but I think that rapping is more physically taxing than singing. Like, no offense to anybody who, like, knows better and it's different. I think, you know, both are equally difficult and talented and things like that, but I think rapping, because of the pressure and the beat and the faster talking, because it's more rhythmic, I think it's more physically taxing too. So I really like that he chose to do a rap specific. Usually his music, at least for the few that I've seen, is a mixture of rapping and singing, and the choice to make it mostly rapping, I think, was very interesting too. It's like a celebration of being able to have this physical activity back. It kind of reminds me, in the Captain America movie, the first one, after he gets the serum, the first thing he does is run, because pre-serum Steve was not able to run. So just the joy of celebrating, is like, I can run and I
going
breathe.
All out.
Yeah, and I really liked that too. I think that was a very humanizing scene in that, because it wasn't him being like, look at my muscles, look how strong I am, because that's not, Steve was like, I can breathe, I can run without dying, how wonderful is this? And I think that's the reason that he chose this one to be a rap. It could just be that was the most appropriate way to express this message too. Like, you know, as a writer, sometimes you want to write something and the writing decides that it's not going to be written that way. Like, it's a celebration of the fact that he can breathe again.
Thank you guys for watching. We will have more videos out soon. Ren's got a few new songs coming out. Don't forget to subscribe to Ren Makes Music and JankyJolteon. Thank you.